So my name is Grant Timmerman. I'm a G Suite engineer at Google. You can tweet at me at Grant Timmerman at this talk. You can check out my GitHub, github.com/Grant. So today we're going to talk about an AppScript overview. Then we'll dive deeper into the AppScript tooling. In particular, there's one tool called Clasp, the AppScript CLI, that was released just earlier this year. And then fourth, we'll talk about TypeScript and local development, how you can develop AppScript outside of script.google.com. And then lastly, something I really love is GitHub and open source, how you can contribute your scripts or find other people's scripts on GitHub. So first, an overview of AppScript. So what is this AppScript and what can you build with it? Well, so AppScript is a developer platform for quickly and easily building line-of-business applications that integrate with G Suite. It features 3.3 billion weekly executions, 8.7 million weekly end users, 27,000 weekly active domains, and 270,000 weekly developers. AppScript allows you to increase productivity of these apps, for example. Make sales and operation teams more efficient with custom workflows and automations that leverage the power of Google with 40+ apps and services. So AppScript powers applications. So these are just a couple of the applications that you can enhance with Google AppScript. So for example, you can create Google Docs add-ons. You can create Sheets custom functions and add-ons. Form add-ons. Just last fall, we announced slide add-ons, and more recently, Gmail add-ons, as well as App Maker for building applications, and Hangouts chatbots for automatically replying to chat messages. Fundamentally, AppScript is a serverless JavaScript runtime for G Suite automation, extension, and integration. So let's dissect that. First, it's serverless. So that means you don't need to provision any servers. You don't need to worry if your server is going to be up over the weekend. It's all hosted in Google Cloud, and it's all managed for you. Second, AppScript is really just JavaScript. So here's a function that just opens a couple menu items for your Google Slides add-on. And so here you can see we're just writing a simple function. It's called onOpen, takes a parameter e, and we're just using this thing called Slides app to get the UI and create a menu. Lastly, it's integrated with Google. So all of these Google APIs and Google technologies are readily available within AppScript. So if you're doing anything from manipulating Drive files, sending emails with Gmail, Google Slides, if you want to integrate all those services together, it's really easy with AppScript. So with AppScript, you can build a couple of different flavors of AppScript tools. So the most popular one is a G Suite add-on. So these are like mini applications that live inside of G Suite. And you can publish them to the marketplace so that you can install it and distribute it for individual users as well as your whole domain. Second, there are web apps. These are scalable web applications for internal or public use. So if you want to host your own public web application that uses G Suite, it's easily publishable with a public URL. Lastly, it allows you to build automations. So these are like background workers that can listen for changes, for example, on edit when you edit a spreadsheet, or when you open a Google slide, for example, and they can take action on your behalf. It's really powerful. So I'm going to write our first Hello World application together. Can we switch to the monitor? Okay. see. I think there's some difficulties. If you don't mind holding on. Romana? I'm sorry. Do I have this plugged in correctly? Can we switch to the... Okay, no worries. So just curious, how many of you have used AppScript before in any fashion? Awesome. So that's everyone. How many have built a add-on, like Google Slides add-on, Sheets add-on? Okay, about half of you. How many have built a web application? Okay, also half. Hangout chat bots? Awesome. 10 people or so? Cool. It's almost working. Black box with yellow frame.
So we see this one, right?
Yeah. I swear it worked during the tech check. But do you have a question? Yeah, sure. Okay, yeah, we can go back to that slide. Sorry, I don't recall them off of hand. But they're the same numbers that Ted gave at his AppScript talk just earlier as well. I'll go back in a second. How many of you primarily code in AppScript? Like more than Python or more than Scala? Okay, so that's about half too. Okay, we have the slides, at least. If you need me to... What? Is that? Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't think we're on the right monitor. Also, we're on this monitor, but we're trying to switch to the other monitor. Yeah, I can go without demos for now. So hello, we're going to code Hello World using the AppScript editor. Unfortunately, all of the next slides are all live demos, so I don't really want to. There's not a whole lot of content on the slides. Yeah, we could do that. So yeah, feel free to look at these numbers and just be bewildered or be amazed by the number of weekly executions. Yes. Yeah, so that's a Google Docs add-on. The AppScript team updated the icons. Yeah. So yeah, that's a bound script to a Google Doc. And then there's AppMaker, there's standalone scripts. Yeah, so that's a good question. So, and it doesn't just apply to Google, it applies to any organization. So some good ways to share add-ons would be if you have a master spreadsheet, for example, a spreadsheet that the whole company uses to track events. For example, there's a spreadsheet tracking this event. You can add an add-on for that or a custom function, and every user of that spreadsheet will be able to use the add-on. And for add-ons that you'd like to publish for your whole company domain, your whole G Suite account, you can, as an administrator, G Suite administrator for that account, you can allow all spreadsheets to have a certain add-on installed, for example. Yeah. So I hope to talk a little bit about that, the whole publishing lifecycle and how to promote the add-on a bit later. So there's a G Suite marketplace in which you can promote and share your add-on and upload example images, have like YouTube videos attached showing off your add-on. And so I've seen a lot of really popular add-ons just have awesome full-page imagery in the Chrome Web Store. Also, including your company logo is often a great way to promote your add-on. And then eventually it'll be featured. If you have something else, Wes? So the slides are on the Chromebook, and I have some live demos on my Mac. So I have a bunch of tabs open on my Mac. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Thank you. So while I'm not able to switch to my MacBook, I'll have to continue presenting on my Chromebook for now. And hopefully we can get to the demos later. We'll probably do them back to back. I was thinking about that. Yeah, I mean, if, well, rebooting or probably just simply doing a meet and sharing my screen would work. Yeah, I don't know if I have multiple. Yeah, this is one of the types of situations you dream that you're not gonna ever be in. But let's continue on. I mean, I have a lot to talk about, and who needs actual live demos, even though they're really cool, because I planned a lot of them. Hello world, docs, add-ons. Okay, I'm going to show the Sheets macro recorder. So I don't know if y'all know, but with Google Sheets, you're able to record the actions that you do as a user, and you're able to record it into what's called a macro, which is basically a little function that you create, and you can duplicate that across spreadsheets, across different tabs, and you can assign it to a hotkey. So for example, you could have control Apple 1 to be a hotkey that automatically formats your spreadsheet to add a header, maybe add zebra stripes to the spreadsheet, formats a couple numbers, and once you do that, you can do it. You can save it as an add-on, and it can be used with all of your spreadsheets, or you could bind it just to that spreadsheet. So at Dreamforce last year, I built a Salesforce add-on that allows you to import your Salesforce opportunities data into Google Sheets. And so you might have like an ORM or some other data service, and you want to just get your data into Google Sheets. Well, it's really not that hard using AppScript's OAuth 2 library and writing a couple lines of code. It's about 20 lines of code. You can connect with that API and then import your data into a spreadsheet. I think I actually have a GIF of this. So yay, prepared a little bit. So yeah, you can, from your CRM, you can take your data and load it into Google Sheets, and you can even manipulate that data and return it back into Salesforce or your CRM. And then you can also, since Google Sheets is integrated with Google Slides and the rest of Google products, it's really easy to just transfer, like for example, charts between your spreadsheet and your Google Slides. So this is the end of the demo. Wait till the end, don't look at this. Okay, here we are at the start. So here, this is a Google Sheets add-on. You allow Salesforce to access your data, and then it'll allow you to import your opportunities table from Salesforce, and it'll load the data. Here we're loading it at a slower speed, but in reality it could be faster. It'll automatically sort it. And then from there, you can create a chart because you're in Google Sheets. And so, awesome, you have a chart. You can customize it, maybe tilt the axes or make it a bit bigger. And then you can just copy with Command C and then paste. And then you have two options. You can link the chart so that the data will be reflected in this chart, or you can do a static image of just the chart itself. That's a good question. I think we had the product manager, Ted, knows a bit more, but I think it was an external designer. But you could do, I mean, nothing's stopping you from doing it in AppScript. Okay, well, shoot, I have a lot more demos. Yeah, so once you authenticate, usually with the OAuth flow, you receive an access token and a refresh token and an expiry time. The cool part about the AppScript OAuth 2 library is that it'll store that data. So if you are currently logged in, you don't need and you have expired credentials, AppScript will automatically refresh the credentials. But if you, for example, like refresh the whole page and you're on a whole new state, you can use a local storage for AppScript to store your like refresh token for that user. Does that answer the question? Okay, thanks. I might try the Hangouts to myself idea that someone brought up. Yes. If someone, Ramon, thanks. Okay, well, we're out. Don't.
Downstage monitor, please.
Yeah, sorry? The developers hub. Okay, so the question was, when is the developer hub going to be available? So I think you're referencing the G Suite developers hub that was announced by Ted. So I believe the hub is supposed to be announced today and launched today or this week and be live soon. I'm not sure the exact date.
Do you want to type in here what you want and then we'll have it brought up there?
Okay. So are you sure you're not able to like use any adapter to display my MacBook? Because I'll try a Hangouts meet, but I'm not sure. So I'll start a new meeting. Dismiss. Okay. google.com/ZIA-KJXV-MAH. Okay.
Just tell me when you're ready.
Okay. Can I?
Yep, we're gonna bring that.
So I'm trying the Hangouts meet approach. So we don't necessarily need. So it's the cursor. Then to share screens. Sorry, where's that? Straight down. Right here? Okay. Present your entire screen. Okay. I think that's my Mac. Full screen on the Chromebook. Okay. Full screen. There's a button for that. Is that full screen? Yeah. Okay. And you can see my MacBook now. Okay, great. Yeah, let's. Hey, okay, awesome. Hey, we can solve problems together. That's an accomplishment. Okay, so now I'm presenting. So here we are at the new AppScript dashboard. So if you don't have any projects, you will see this screen. How much time do I have, by the way? I have 25 minutes. Okay, I think I can do that. Okay, so let's go run through the demos really quickly, and I'll try to talk faster. Okay, cool. So here we have the AppScript, just plain screen. And so let's spray our hello world together. Hello world. Okay, awesome. Let's just make sure we can do that. And these icons don't render if you zoom in. So if we do that, we're running an AppScript function on Google servers. And it's just JavaScript, and it's rendering hello world. Cool. Okay. I'm just going to use my MacBook and not switch because I don't want to switch. Cool. Docs add-ons. Okay. So with Google Docs, you're able to create add-ons which are sidebars. So for example, if you have a document like this, you still see that bottom bar. Is that okay? Okay. So you might have a document like this, and you'll notice if you go and press Tools, then Script Editor. This is the access point for getting into AppScript. So this right here, by clicking that button, you're creating a document-bound script. This is a AppScript project that will only work within this document. But the cool part is that you're able to access properties from the document and manipulate the document. So, for example, someone called it out. Cool. So, for example, we can create a translate add-on, which allows you to translate from one language to another. So here, it's a bit of code, but a lot of it's comments. So I'll explain it after it works, hopefully. Cool. And then it's called sidebar. Cool. So let's say, so we just wrote two files. One is code.js, that's an AppScript file, and then sidebar.html. That's an HTML file with some JavaScript inside of it. So if we refresh this page, we should see there should be a new add-on. So quick start, awesome. Let's start the quick start. It's going to ask you for some permissions. This is the Google AppScript permission modal dialog. And it'll say, hey, Grant, can I view your documents? Can I run some code as if I was you? And I will say allow. And after a couple seconds, I need to disable my notifications. I can, for example, highlight the whole text and translate the text into German. That's not going to work. But for example, if I wanted to translate a sentence into German. I'm not exactly sure what that says in German, but it looks correct. And this is powered by Google Translate. So I'll go back to the slides. Here, I want to talk a little bit about the Sheets macro recorder. So with Google Sheets, just recently, we enabled the ability to record macros in AppScript, which are basically little functions that you can repeat multiple times. So for example, here I have quarterly data for some of the users for my game. And you can see I have like Q1, Q2, Q3. They're all different dates and all. Let's say I want to format all these spreadsheets in the same way. Well, so I can just go to Tools, and then you'll see Macros, and you can start recording a macro. So here, I'm going to use absolute references. I'm going to create a nice header, and then I think I want to insert, I want to format alternating colors so that my data looks really nice. And so I just did that. I can press save, and I'll save this to a new number. Format sheet. It's Command Option Shift 5. Saving the new macro. And I can go here and press Command Option Shift 5. It'll ask me if I allow this script to run. It allows you to manage spreadsheets. That's fine with me. And voila, it automatically does all the actions automatically. And so you can see, you can also, let's say you don't like that color or something, you can go into your script editor and see, okay, well, it changed everything to light gray, but I want some color. So I'm going to do, like, green. All right, let's do, no, there's no red. Let's do cyan. You can also do HTML, like CSS colors, but there's some prefix ones. So Command Option Shift 5. Also, if you undo things, then you change it to a different color. So that's just one way you can use the macro recorder, and also modify your macros. Great. Okay, the Google Sheets and Salesforce add-on demo, I showed this a little bit before. So you're able to take your data from a CRM, parse it into Google Sheets, and go into Google Slides. Let's skip that. For Google Slides add-ons, this was recently allowed last fall, and it allows you to sorry. Okay. Cancel. Thank you. Man, this is complicated. I did not prepare for this. So Google Slides add-ons. So last fall, the Google Slides team announced add-ons that allows you to manipulate and modify your slides. Allows you to add new slides, modify the content, etc. So there's Google Slides Translate add-on as well that I built that allows you to translate your Google slide deck from one language to another, all with Google Translate. So as normal, you go to Tools, and then Script Editor, and now you're in the scripting environment for your Google Slides. So if you want to go, for example, manipulate your Google Slides, we have a great 5-minute quick start that I can do in 30 seconds probably, if you go fast enough. So let's say you want to add progress bars for your Google Slides. So here we have a video. It's me and Wes showing how you can do this. But you can also just copy the code, go into your script project, paste the code, and here we're doing a couple things. So let me explain the code a little bit. First, can you see this? So here we're declaring an onOpen function. There. So this is a special function in AppScript that always runs whenever you open a presentation. And so what on open, we're going to have an event. We're not going to use that event though. And then we're going to say slidesapp.getUI.create add-on menu. Then from there, we're creating a new custom add-on and menu, and we're going to add some items, show progress bar, and then pass it the name of the method that we wanted to invoke when a user clicks that button. And we'll also have the hide progress bar with delete bars. And then those are just normal JavaScript functions with some custom Google Slides code. So here, first, when we create the bars, we want to delete all previous bars. And then we want to get the current presentation, get all the slides, see how many slides there are, have a ratio of the current slide over the slides -1 because it's we're doing zero-based indexing. And then we'll have an X and Y attribute for the actual bar, rectangle. The bar width will be the width times the ratio. So it'll be from 0 to 1. And then we'll only show bars that are non-zero. Then we'll just insert a shape, which is a rectangle at the XY, and the width and height. And then like add some borders and set like a link URL as a custom ID. So let's see this in action. So here, I think if we refresh, let me just double check that the code is okay. The onOpen should add some menu items to this presentation. Not seeing the correct ones. Yeah, I think I refreshed it, but well, yeah. Yeah, so I think not exactly sure why. I mean, it should prompt you for authentication. But we can skip. Yeah, the trigger should just be on open, so that's fine. We can skip to the next slide. Great. So Gmail add-ons just came out last fall, and they allow you to extend Gmail, the native app, from Android, iOS, and web. So this is pretty unique in terms of AppScript, and it allows you to customize your emails. So I guess this does not work. So write once, run anywhere on web or mobile. For example, Asana, QuickBooks, Trello, etc. have add-ons that work across these devices. The add-on structure is a bit like this. You have a header, and you have card sections and section headers, etc. It works great because it's a structured UI data format that works well across devices. Here's some example add-ons. So if you use GitHub at all, you can write an add-on that fetches metadata from GitHub's API and provides things like data on who reported an issue, when it was last updated, etc. Another one that's useful if you schedule a lot of meetings is the meeting assistant. You can find a time that works. For example, if you want to schedule a meeting with 4 clients, Jane, Bob, Mary, and Sam, for 30 minutes, and to start after 8 o'clock and end before 6 o'clock, it'll provide you example times that will work, and you can schedule a calendar event right there. And you can try these demos out on github.com/gsuitedevs/Gmail add-ons samples. Cool. So I have a YouTube API sample. So for example, I play the saxophone, and I've been looking up YouTube videos for the saxophone recently, and so I have a little demo that shows just how you can use some of Google technologies. For example, using the YouTube API and the Google Slides API to query YouTube and see to query specific songs, and then put all those songs into a slide presentation. So this really features Google Advanced Services. So you'll see under Resources, Advanced Services, you'll have all these different types of advanced services, which you can enable. Right now, I'm going to enable the YouTube Data API. That allows you to query YouTube, like YouTube data. So here, we're just in the Google Cloud Platform console. This is the standard way you can enable a Google API. And we just got there through this little link right in AppScript. So we'll say OK. Cool, we have no data usage. Now let's go and create some slides. So in AppScript, we can just press the Run button, and this will be running on Google servers. It'll say, hey, wait, who are you? We need to go and allow you to view and manage your Google Slide presentations, and even view your YouTube account, or view a YouTube account. And so this will run in the background, and while we wait, I can explain a little bit of the code. We have 2 methods. One is get YouTube videos JSON. Second is create slides. The first one will just query the YouTube API for an ID. The second will get the YouTube videos and create a presentation. And here, we'll see a fresh doc. And voila, we have a lot of saxophone tutorials. So this is a little demo of how you can just make something that's interesting for yourself. Hope you enjoyed that. I am running out of time, so I'm so sorry, but I have to just talk mostly about these next few things. So there's a lot of AppScript tools that you can utilize. One is the Cloud IDE that I just showed. The dashboard I briefly mentioned. Stack driver logs allows you to have persistent logs. All you have to do is write console.log, and then in your project you can go view stack driver logs and see the logs. Lastly is the API and CLI. So the API and CLI were just announced earlier this year, and they allow you to manage scripts from the command line. So this is the Cloud IE. The dashboard allows you to manage executions. Stack driver logs allow you to see persistent logs. Class the AppScript CLI. So this allows you to create app scripts from the command line. So let's say you don't want to use script.google.com and you just want to use like iTerm or your simple command line tool. Well, now you can using class, just npm install Google Clasp, and you're able to create, pull, push, clone, deploy, and even view logs. It's built off of the AppScript CLI. Here's a little timeline of the AppScript CLI and API when it was announced. So it was released early this year, I said. Internally, Clasp was built, upgraded to TypeScript in March. Then later in May, you were able to list projects, view stack driver logs, auto-sync AppScript files, even have custom root directories with your AppScript command line project. And today, I'm really happy to announce that there's going to be TypeScript support in the AppScript CLI. So this is really huge, especially if you're an AppScript developer and you really want modern technologies and modern tooling like TypeScript. And so this will allow you to facilitate combining code and use your personal IDEs. I really don't have time, unfortunately, but there's good quotes. You'll have to believe me. And so again, there's TypeScript support. This is new. I literally just made the commit like 2 days ago. And it allows for local auto-completion, optional typing, type inference, etc. Don't have time for the demos, but here are some of the benefits. You can have optional typing, access to ES6 and 7 features, tooling support, auto-completion, etc. Yeah, really don't have time. And then lastly, I just want to talk a little bit about GitHub and open source. So AppScript has an amazing community of people who contribute on Google+, as well as contribute to our AppScript samples. So here we have over 1,200 stars on our AppScript sample repo alone. And this shows you how to do everything from use the admin SDK, calendar, classroom docs, drive, form sheets, Gmail, slides, tasks, and a bunch more. It's also open to pull requests. So in summary, there are a lot of tools that are helping target the professional developer that the AppScript team and art that I'm working on. And so with the API class, the new dashboard, and open source, we really hope that there's more that you can leverage when you're building your AppScript projects. This is what we talked about. Get started at script.google.com. You'll be able to find these slides later on my personal grant/talks on GitHub. Thank you.